talking trade candidates on this edition of the Cowboys Report. Jerry Jones has said the Cowboys aren't going to add talent. They like their talent, blah, blah, blah. But he has left the door open for trading away players before this year's NFL trade deadline. Here's one of the many things Jerry Jones said on his Tuesday radio interview, which, it's funny how the owner and GM talks more than any other owner or GM. I digress. So that if you see us moving in any way, by chance, during this trade deadline, trading somebody, Jerry said. That would be because we're going in a different direction with defense, offense, whatever you want to do. Obviously, we're going in a different direction than we did with Quinn in a small part. And so that the same player may not work as well with what we want to do with Zimmer as when we had Quinn. That's the door open to, hey, you know what? We might move on from some guys if we don't get a couple wins here before the trade deadline. So with that in mind, what should Dallas be at this year's NFL trade deadline? B for they should buy, S for they should sell, H for they should hold and not make any trades at all. Let me know in the comments section as we break down some trade candidates for the Cowboys. First up is linebacker Damone Clark. And when Jerry said doesn't fit, what Mike Zimmer wants to do, that very much stood out to me as, okay, maybe he's talking about a player like Damone Clark. Because I think there's a chance that Clark has fallen out of favor with both the coaching staff and with the front office. And that is how you end up seeing a player who is not a pending free agent ending up getting dealt before the trade deadline. Clark he just doesn't quite have enough of the instincts. The athletic ability is there. The overall, I think, physical skill set is there, but the processing isn't. And you really see it show up against motion-heavy teams and teams that deploy their eye candy properly. It's just not quite clicked for Damone Clark. And before Eric Kendricks got hurt, his snap counts had dipped. They had gone in the wrong direction. They were playing Kendricks over him. They were playing DeMarvion Overshown over him. They were playing Maurice Leaf over him. He's your fourth linebacker. You have 6 on the roster. You don't necessarily need 6. So I could see if a team calls, since the Cowboys won't make calls themselves, as they've admitted, Dallas could be open to a trade there. The name that you guys want to move on from, and I get it, is Trey Lance. Because, well, what's the point of having a number 3 QB who doesn't play and makes more money than the number 2 QB and just is going to be a free agent? I get it. Trust me, I do. Because we saw Trey Lance not really show enough in the preseason. So the reason why for months now it's been, well, trade Trey Lance. Sure, it makes sense for the Cowboys organization. Get something back for a guy that you might not re-sign with your new coaching staff most likely anyway. Who wants him? That's what I keep getting into. Who actually wants to take on a half-season rental of Trey Lance? I don't think anybody wants to. That's why I don't think there's much, if any, trade value here, because you're taking a rental project who's not going to be a starting option for you, and you can't develop a guy when his contract's up. Doesn't make any sense to me. So, be honest with me with the pinned comment of today's show. Do you think Trey Lance has any actual trade value? Let me know. Type in Y for yes or N for no at the pinned comment. We'll group these next 2 players together. That is Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker. Again, these first 4 names make some sense in terms of you can ship those guys off if you want to. The contracts are a little bit expensive, but nothing overly extreme for a new team to take on. Plus, you could eat the money if you had to. Look, Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker haven't played well this year. That's where you're at. Neither guy has stepped up the way we've seen them play in years past. Now, Hooker's tackle numbers are on a pretty good path. That's actually a bad thing for a safety. I'd rather have my safety a bunch of pass breakups and interceptions and, be a good deep man than, be on pace for a career high in tackles. That normally is a bad sign, especially when you're a deep safety. Donovan Wilson, meanwhile, the splash plays, those impact plays, he's had so many chances to increase that tackle number, increase that TFL, increase that pass breakup group. He just hasn't done it. And I kind of want to see more of Wanye Thomas. I want to see more of Marquise Bell. Kind of wish you had Julius Wood still, but, sometimes you don't always get what you want. So the contract's an issue. I don't know if they'd be able to find a trade partner necessarily, but that is the type of guy that you send out and say, hey, we will take calls on them if you end up being a seller. Today's Cowboys Report is brought to you by Ollie. Clean, fresh nutrition for your dog. It's in 5 flavors they will absolutely love. They are offering a fantastic deal to let your pup taste test a personalized meal plan. Get 60% off your first box of meals when you use promo code CHATSPORTS at ollie.com. Here's how it works. You fill out Ollie's 30-second quiz, and they'll create a customized meal plan for your dog. They crunch the numbers and recommend the right recipes and daily portions for your pup. For any first-timers, they will send out your pup's first box with 2 weeks' worth of meals and a guide on how to gradually switch them over to their new diet, and you can customize your plan from 3 different meal plans to choose from. My dog Finn is a big fan of it because he needs the energy between my busy work schedule, the wife's busy work schedule, having a high-energy 3-year-old. He deserves having great food because, to be quite honest, you can't see it in the photos quite right. He got a lot more gray than he used to around the eyes since she came around. So head to ollie.com, tell them about your dog, and use code CHATSPORTS, and you'll get 60% off your first box of meals when you subscribe today. That's OLLIE.com, and use code CHATSPORTS to get 60% off your first box. They offer a clean bowl guarantee on their first box, so if you're not completely satisfied, you can get your money back. The next 2 names on this list, I think, kind of fit a similar archetype of, if they were healthy, that might be a very different conversation. Brandin Cooks, I think when he comes back, if he comes back, he was back at practice today on the cords for the first time, which is a positive sign as he recovers from his infection. He is going to be like iffy around the trade deadline. That drives down the value because he hasn't a chance to show that he, is back to form, that he isn't just a aging, declining player. He has not been good this year. Why they have run him on so many comeback routes, I honestly probably will never truly understand, but it's just what the Cowboys offense wants to do for whatever reason. I kind of think Jalen Tolbert is the number 2 receiver whenever Cooks does come back. I don't think you necessarily have to force feed Brandin Cooks targets. So if a team is in the market for a veteran wide receiver, even though you're not going to get the type of offer that, DeAndre Hopkins and others got, getting a draft pick back, allowing you to spend money in free agency and not worry about your precious comp picks actually does make sense. DeMarcus Lawrence is one of the trickier ones because I don't know if he's going to be back. He already took a pay cut one time for the Cowboys. He's going to be a free agent. They drafted Marshall to kind of replace him. He would have been, I think, a very popular trade target for other teams, trade candidate name for the Cowboys, but he's out past the NFL trade deadline. So you're trading for a player who you hope ends up getting healthy for late to mid-November, early December. That's a tough ask for a lot of NFL teams to consider doing. He'd be a great fit in Detroit, but it kind of run into an issue of, okay, you're going to trade for a hurt guy. Teams normally don't like doing that. So name a player who you want to trade. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Now, this next one's tricky because you don't have the depth right now to avoid not having him, but Chauncey Golston kind of falls into the Damone Clark category to an extent. He's played more this year, and I think has actually kind of stepped up a little bit with the injuries, but he's in the last year of his contract. Are the Cowboys planning on bringing him back? And if they really struggle the next 2 weeks and go into a bit of a fire sale mode, a versatile, good run stopper, can do some good pass rush stuff, can be a rotation defensive end piece, could generate some interest. He is having one of his best years ever already. The bar is very low, but he's getting playing time because of other injuries out there. The problem is for Dallas, just like the Tank Lawrence stuff, or kind of tied to the Tank Lawrence stuff, you can't really go into a game with Tyrus Sweet and KJ Henry and Carl Lawson as your pass rushers. If Nealon and Parsons were both healthy, maybe it could be a different conversation. Now, if the Cowboys make a trade, we will have a video for you. So make sure you guys are subscribed, youtube.com/CowboysTV. And if you are subscribed, you'll know we've already talked about the next 2 players on this list. thanks to what ESPN's Todd Archer has previously written. I won't spend as much time on these two because we mentioned that on a Wednesday video for you. But Archer mentioned Osa Odighizuwa as a trade candidate. Now, the logic is sound. He's not playing that great this year. This could also tie into the whole scheme fit with Mike Zimmer stuff. He's also your only good, proven young defensive tackle, if not the only outright good defensive tackle. But he hasn't played well this season. He's going to be a free agent. I don't know if the Cowboys are going to re-sign him, especially coming off of the year he's having so far this campaign. You also don't have anybody else out there. Like a defensive tackle core of Mozzie Smith, Carlos Watkins, Linval Joseph. If you bring back Jordan Phillips, I mean, what's the point? That is a garbage tier room. You already have a tough time stopping the run, getting pressure in the middle. Shoot, it's only going to get worse if you were to trade him. But that's a fire sale type of move. I was surprised when Archer mentioned Trayvon Diggs. Now, this kind of read more of teams might call the Cowboys, okay? They didn't restructure his contract, so they could save some money doing this in a way that they did restructure Terrence Steele, so it's a little bit different between those two conversations there. If the Cowboys want to, they can pay both DaRon Bland and Trayvon Diggs, and I would be kind of sad to not really have seen the fully realized versions of both players play together. They've played a little bit, but not the pick six king in Bland and not interception king in Diggs. Now, Diggs' tackling issues are a very real concern. Those might, if you can stop the run better overall, all of a sudden your quarterback's tackling issues aren't really that big of a deal. But they are a big deal when the rest of the run defense is also bad. I would be, frankly, surprised to see Diggs get dealt because you've paid him. He's one of like 5 guys you've paid on this team. You have money available. You have plenty of it, frankly, which makes the whole thing very curious that I was a bit surprised he was on that list. Look, Diggs, Osa, the guy I'll get to next, that's fire sale stuff. Do you think the Cowboys should have a fire sale before this year's NFL trade deadline? 1 for yes, 0 for no. The big fire sale name is Zack Martin. And I'm not saying I like it, but if you really are cooked on this season, this is probably Zack Martin's last year. And if you can, as difficult as it is for an organization to say, hey, the Hall of Fame guard, one of the best guards to ever do it, let's trade him away, that would suck. But you could go try and help him get a ring somewhere else, and you get a draft pick back. The cap implications are not great necessarily, but it kind of already is what it is at that point. But you're moving on from a Hall of Famer. You'd play TJ Bass the rest of the year. Would help get you an early look at what your 2025 offensive line might look like. And especially on the offensive line, kind of got to keep playing the young dudes. Kind of got to keep playing Guyton and Beebe to know what you're getting yourself into next year so you can make your adjustments beyond that. One bonus name on here that I don't really think is feasible at all, but I'm sure we're going to get comments, so I wanted to mention him, is Micah Parsons. Coming back from the injury, he would net you a haul if you chose to trade him. We're talking Jalen Ramsey, Khalil Mack, original trade packages. That'd be the expectation there, even for a team that doesn't trade that great like the Dallas Cowboys do. But I think that is much more of an off-season type of move. Much more of a before free agency, if you're not going to pay him, you trade him type of deal. I have low expectations about the Cowboys pursuing that type of move, but I did want to acknowledge it as at least a possibility.